Welcome to Basketball on Figueroa, the only podcast breaking down the Lakers, Clippers, and Sparks. I'm your host, Edwin Garcia. Joining me today, per usual, Dar-E and Viziri, aka Dime Dropper. This is episode 17.2. Dime. What happened, man?
Technical difficulties. Our boy Fabian in the back accidentally deleted the tape on an accident. Shout out Fabian. He was very apologetic, though, poor guy. And here we go again, redoing the episode. But honestly, I think this is better because now we've finished every single LA game of till the All-Star break. So we can just basically talk about it as if that's it. You know, we still had the Jazz game and the Clippers against the Warriors to talk about after the All-Star break. I feel like it's nice to just have the nice cutoff here right at the All-Star break. We're done with the LA teams for now.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm going to let you, dealer's choice. I'm going to let you decide. We can either go in order with the last game we haven't recapped yet, which is Clippers Pelicans, or we can jump right to the recent game with maybe Clippers Warriors, Lakers, Jazz. How do you want to go with it?
I say we just knock them out in chronological order. Just give them the nice rundown. So you said Clippers Pels first?
Yeah, Clippers Pels. Yeah.
I was at this game, and it just continues to be a bad matchup for the Clippers playing against New Orleans. We had actually kept Zion and Brandon Ingram at bay for most of the game, but CJ McCollum was really the star, and I thought Herb Jones did a really good job on Harden. And I think Kawhi Leonard in that game only shot 10 times, if I'm not mistaken. And they outplayed us. I don't know what else to say. We just missed a lot of shots as well. And I remember thinking, like, the Clippers are on a heater. This was the first game back from the road trip. And they finally had a poor shooting night, but credit the Pelicans defense as well. And then Zion started turning up in the second half. And I remember Ty Lue just kind of left Mason Plumlee out there and he was getting abused. And Zoo kind of still on that minutes restriction. So he wasn't fully able to play as many minutes as he could to deter Zion at the rim. So good win for the Pelicans. And we continue to lose to those guys.
Yeah, Pelicans. It's one of those there's weird things where I still feel like if they're in a series against each other, which might happen, we'll see. I still feel like the Clippers probably are fine, but the Pels play hard, and like we mentioned before, I think that the that in-season tournament was a blessing in disguise. Getting embarrassed against the Lakers, they let them know, hey, like this is the level, like shape up, And for Zion, he really got the smoke, as we know. Stephen A. he just went off on him, on his weight and this and that, and how he looked, and it didn't help when the team played bad. So it's like, even if that stuff was BS or unnecessary, it's like, well, you played poorly. So people are looking for, excuses and reasons, and, the out of shape, kind of trope, reared its ugly head. But since then, they've been playing so good. I mean, 30-21, that's nothing to sneeze at all, especially in the West. And yeah, they played the Clippers well. Those games are tests for the Pelicans as well, just like they're tests for, the Clippers on how you're doing with, not the top team in the East, but like contending team, and looks like a team that's very likely going to avoid the play-in and be a top 6 team. We still got a ways to go, but they're kind of going that way. So yeah, good win for the Pelicans. They were able to pull that one off. All right, Thursday was the day. We talked about it before, but let me rehash it, show you how I got these scars. Thursday was just a zoo here in Los Angeles. There was some speculation on some moves from the Clippers. They didn't end up doing anything, and we'll get into where things are with the Clippers later on their roster and a couple players. But on trade deadline day, it came and went, nothing. The Lakers, how many rumors did we hear? How many stories did we hear? But guess what? Nothing. Not a thing. Not even a small trade. Nothing. D'Lo's on the team. Everyone's on the team. Everything's the same. Nothing happened. So it was much ado about nothing. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. One is, again, it takes 2 teams to make a deal. I kept trying to tell people that. People made it sound like, like the Lakers had all these great offers and just said, you know what? No. And it's like, it didn't necessarily work like that. There were some deals that could get done, but again, fine balance between upgrading and hemorrhaging your future for a slight upgrade. And that was ultimately, they didn't do anything there. Not only was it trade deadline day, which was at 12 o'clock West Coast time, at, I believe it was 3:30, or 3 o'clock, we had the statue unveiling for Kobe Bryant. His statue was unveiled, and a kind of not a private ceremony, but semi-private. It was only a few select people were able to view it, maybe like about 100 or so. and then we had after that a game. So it was just nuts, a trifecta there. And luckily, I always say, I don't know, Dime, did you ever watch the Nicolas Cage classic Lord of War?
I have not, sadly.
Well, I'm going to spoil the end, even though it doesn't really spoil the movie. So I'm just going to drop one of my favorite lines in the movie. Nicolas Cage's character says, there are two tragedies in life, not getting what you want and getting it. And I thought that's just like an incredible bar to be like, wow, like either way, you're kind of going to be messed up. And that's something that I felt definitely that day, because these are the things I dream of, right? Like covering these moments. But then guess what? That also means you got to cover these moments, which means I was working from like 6 a.m. until like 2 in the morning. And again, I love it. Wouldn't have it any other way. But my goodness, was I tired throughout the whole day. But it was a lot to cover. Trade deadline, statue, and the game. We briefly touched on the no trades happening, so I'm going to jump right into the statue unveiling. And for me personally, I was lucky enough that I was allowed to be in the building and be able to cover it, but I wasn't actually in the kind of created like this tent thing outside where the statue is present for everyone to view now. But at the time they just had it there, they kind of built a tent around it. And I wasn't one of the people who was able to view it there. So I actually watched it from the media room, and I was in there in the building for that and et cetera, and everything else involving that day. So that's kind of where my like view was. The best way I can describe it to like the general fan, what does that mean? It means that I watched it technically earlier than everyone else, because the TV feeds like 30 seconds a minute slower than like what's there live. So kind of like when you watch a game live, if you're like literally tweeting the minute something happens, you're probably spoiling it for people because you're actually there. Like it cannot happen faster than what you're watching, versus how long it takes for like things to be streamed and show up on cable and on like tablets and what have you. So that's kind of what my experience was. And yeah, it was heavy, it was emotional. There were some people in the room, you could hear like tears and crying and like that kind of heaviness. Vanessa Bryant mentioned that she wanted it to be a celebration more than like a funeral feeling. And I think in general it was, but it was just hard to get away from the fact that, man, like he's supposed to be here for this. Like, Shaq was there for his, and ideally, everyone would be there for their unveilings. Kareem's got stuff there. Magic has stuff there. If LeBron one day gets one there, he should probably still be around, right? We just saw this past week, Magic got his jersey retired. Imagine, that happening for someone like Kobe. Luckily, he was there for that, but it's just, he shouldn't be gone. It was a freak accident, and that's what it was. But it's something that's definitely heavy, and it doesn't take too long for you to start feeling that, especially in LA, as I'm sure you know better than most how ingrained in the fabric of the community in the city he is, regardless of Clipper, Lakers. You don't even have to like basketball. You can't go to a coffee shop or get a taco without seeing a Kobe mural at some point. Like, what he means to the city, right? So all that kind of led to that. And it was an emotional moment, and it was, heavy, and it was still cool to see it and have it unveiled and people responding to it. And then right after, oddly enough, Pelinka talked, which is rare because Pelinka doesn't talk too often unless it's a major signing, and usually sometime after the trade deadline. So it was kind of weird. I just got a message like, Pelinka's going to be in the media room like in 10 minutes. I'm like, okay. no one told us anything. So we had to kind of scramble for that and kind of balance covering the statue while also talking about, hey, you did no trades today. Like, what was up with that? And, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. Obviously, I don't have the quotes on me right now, but he basically just said that there weren't any deals that were going to really help push the team in that direction. They didn't see anything that giving up what they would have to give up really made sense. And he described it as, you can't buy a house that's not for sale. So I thought that was pretty interesting, saying that, hey, like, again, it takes two. Like, if you don't want to, then, or if you want to only if like it's highway robbery, well then, it's like me saying, hey, you can have my computer for $5,000. And it's like, okay, well, it's not worth $5,000. Like, this is ridiculous. And it's like that kind of conversation that it, according to his perspective, that's kind of how things were. And that's where things ended up. So we had that. And before we go into the game, I just want to get your thoughts, Dime. What was your experience? Have you seen the statue? Did you watch the presentation? Like, what was it from your perspective, on that day with Kobe's statue being unveiled on Thursday?
So that day, I actually had a semifinal game to coach for my sixth grade team against Sierra Canyon, and it was right before the game started that the statue was unveiled. So I was checking your Twitter feed, I was checking, Laker people's Twitter feeds to see when the picture came out to Twitter at what it would look like, and I was the first thing I thought about when I saw that statue was, oh, that's the post in the 81-point game. So they went with number 8 over number 24. Then people are commenting under my tweet saying it's one of 3 statues. There's going to be one with 24. I was like, excuse me? And they said 3 statues. I said, what? I mean, do we even have that much room in Star Plaza? Was my first thought. Not to say Kobe doesn't deserve 3. I mean, I think he deserves 2. I think the third is just kind of, as you say, such a tragedy, and you wanted to honor Gigi in some way, because we got to see Kobe's first 2 daughters so much throughout the course of his career. You know what I mean? It's funny because it's amazing the relationship fans can have with a basketball player, or even you can say a hockey or baseball. You see them on TV so frequently throughout the season, every day or two, every other day, or the longest rest you get is 3 days, and then the All-Star break. These people are in front of the TV screen, and if you support your local team, you can go watch them. Of course, expenses vary by team, but you still could watch them. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
it's crazy, seeing someone like Kobe every single night. For somebody like myself, yeah, he wasn't a Clipper, but I watched Laker games every night, and he was the longest tenured LA basketball player in my life. I mean, of all time, actually, yeah, because he's played 20 years with one franchise, and only Dirk Nowitzki passed that. So nobody has played in one place longer than Kobe besides Dirk. And so to enjoy that, you get to see him so much, see his family so much. I remember when the Clippers had little Chris. I saw little Chris. He was playing our 8th grade team a couple of weeks back, and it was just crazy to me. I remember when this kid felt like one of us. He's always at the game. So it's nice to see 3 statues. I'm really just curious about the placement of all this. And no, I haven't seen the Kobe statue yet with my own 2 eyes. I think it has some interesting aspects to it. I think the face they could have done a little bit better with, not gonna lie. But the pose, I like the triangular base to represent the triangle offense that he won all his chips running with Phil. And I got to meet Phil, and I told him great speech. That was really cool because his grandson plays in the younger league that I coach in at the park. And Phil Jackson came in, and I got to talk to him for like a minute or 2. So that was really cool. But yeah, very emotional, as you said. I always envisioned this day. I talked about it to my friends our whole lives, what Kobe statue is going to look like. But never did we ever imagine that Kobe wouldn't be there to see it. So, bittersweet, but mostly bitter, in my opinion. But I can't wait to see the statue and 2 more. I mean, are you kidding me? That's crazy. We still got to put Anze Kopitar and Drew Doughty out there.
Yeah, and I think Worthy deserves one as well.
I think that,
So
ship may have sailed, unfortunately, for big game. How much room do we have? I mean, Anze Kopitar and Drew Doughty have played only their career with the Kings in that building, and the only 2 Stanley Cups. And they gave one to Dustin Brown. Once they gave one to Dustin Brown, Drew Doughty and Anze Kopitar are going to have to get statues. And I mean, what is this, an amusement park at this point, or the Hall of Fame? I mean, we can't. How many statues we got in Star Plaza? People got to walk here. I love it.
I mean,
I'm all for recognizing the LA greats, but
walk on the other side, baby. There's plenty of space. We'll cross across the street at the light. You know what I mean? No, I'm with you. Yeah, we'll keep it short here because obviously we have other games to talk about. But yeah, it's a weird thing because I'm definitely not like a celebrity hero worship guy. I'm like, hey, these are just regular people, and just because you like this person in a movie or a TV show, like you don't actually know them, and like just be careful. You don't want to start getting into hero worship. But at the same time, like when I describe Kobe to people, I describe him like the big brother I didn't have, because like you said, I watched him grow up. I remember the first time I heard of Kobe. Like it was my cousin telling me there's this kid in LA and he's gonna be better than Michael Jordan. I was like, what? And then I saw him, playing at the All-Star game, and that was like my Kobe journey. And then I saw the whole thing, you see the whole thing, you see the ups, you see the downs, you see him dating, you see him having kids, you see the kids, like I watched game 7 of the 2010 NBA finals pretty much every single year on my birthday. That's at minimum. Then there's something I just get your vibe and I turn it on. I already have the YouTube links and all that, and it's also available, I think, like in abridged versions on the NBA app. So like I watch that one regularly for many reasons, and one of them is obviously the fact that Kobe got that one and it's the Celtics and all that. And you see his kids there celebrating with him. It's so wild seeing that video now, especially when you watch it, because you see his kids there, you see him there, David Stern's there, and you're like, wow, a lot of these people aren't even here anymore. Like this isn't even that long ago.
It's heartbreaking, man. Bus is still there in the room.
Yeah,
it's really tragic. Stuart Scott is there. Like it's just
he's there right there on the center court. Yeah,
it was just a different time, man. And
100%.
I think we can speak for both of us probably that we have loved ones that were around at that time as well. So it's just sad. Sometimes you wish you could just go back for a day.
Man, yeah. The one more TV. I already did the Lord of War, Nicolas Cage. It reminds me of that funny clip from The Office where Andy goes, I wish you knew you were in the good times before they passed. And that was also Bart, because that happens. And of course, things happen for the reasons they happen, and that's why we talk about that mama mentality and just saying, hey, like let's give it our all. That's why we're on this call at 11:47 when we were also on it at 2 a.m. Like, what? Let's just, if this is it, like let's do our best, and hey, that's it. That's all we could do. So he brought that out. He brought that every night. I know you definitely talk about you want to see that every night. You frustrated when you feel like you don't see it and all that. And the best thing we can do to carry on that legacy is, again, moving kindness, moving good spirit, and give your best at what your desires are, which is one thing Kobe always iterated. For myself and Dime, that's like basketball coverage and basketball knowledge and writing, video, etc. For someone else, it might be, art and painting and fashion, or just you doing your regular job and just being a good member of the community. Like there's different ways to do it. And that's one thing he definitely like stood for. And it's part of the mentality that's there that, that especially this city definitely lives and breathes. People think it's just a glamour and glitz city, and it is, but it's a tough city. And then, that's what there's a reason why people come here, and after 3 years, they go back wherever they were from. They're like, I can't do this. It's like, it's not that easy. You gotta grind it out. You gotta go for it. And with the cost of everything, you're really gonna have to show that you really wanted to make it here. And yeah, it's just it was great to see. It's great to have it there. I'm also curious what the other ones will look like. I predicted the fadeaway. We got the finger in the air 81. So maybe we get the fadeaway in the next one. I'll be curious to see where they are and where they're placed and how long they take to get. I think the easy days to predict are, well, there's Kobe Day, 8/24, his birthday's 8/23, and then you have the anniversary of this one. You could do 2/8, you could do 2/24. Those are some dates to kind of keep an eye on, and hopefully we get some updates, because that was definitely a surprise hearing there's 3 statues. That's pretty wild. All right, so let's go right into Lakers Denver. Unfortunately, they had to play a game, and again, like I understand. They're just making the schedule how they make the schedule, but why couldn't they play, I don't know, the Bulls or something? Like, why do they have to play like the best team in the NBA, or one of the best teams in the NBA, a team they haven't beaten in 5 games, that won the title, that swept them in the conference finals, with all this heaviness? Who's getting traded, who's going to get dealt, Kobe statue. Oh yeah, and then the best team that doesn't care about any of this, especially the Joker. He didn't care about any of that. He's like, okay, that's cool. I'm going to just here's bucket, and that's exactly what happened. The Lakers lost 114-106. They were right there. It was the same story you've heard. I could basically just copy paste their conversation from opening night or game 4 or game 3. The Lakers were right there. They were in the mix. 4th quarter, tight game. Guess what? Murray, Joker, pick and roll. They ate. I talked about Murray just being amazing. Like he was just almost like borderline perfect. Like really nothing went wrong for him. And he had that big like 5-point fury in the final 2 minutes to kind of push them over the edge, because it was a 1-possession game, with like 3 minutes to go or so. It was right there. And he just did just enough to keep the Lakers at bay, and they couldn't close that game out. So again, they played well. The Lakers were right there. Would not surprise me if the Lakers Denver this year would be a 6-7 game series. Even though that was a sweep last year, every game was close. Every game in the 4th quarter, if I told you bet money in this game, you would be nervous regardless of who you bet on, because you saw how tight it was. But for whatever reason, Denver just, I wouldn't say they have the number, but they've been just good enough every single time to usurp them and get the victory. Dime, watching this game, Lakers Denver, what was your biggest takeaway from this matchup?
Man, it's so hard to beat Denver, especially when they're playing with intensity because there are some games the Nuggets just randomly in the regular season just don't show up defensively. They're locked in defensively. I mean, you see what they're capable of. And Jamal Murray, as you said, the way he's closed, going back to the conference finals last year against you guys, and then again in this game. But there were some lapses in concentration, lack of focus defensively for the Lakers late in the game, like Jackson Hayes closing out too hard on Aaron Gordon, got beat baseline, and then Taurean Prince going underneath the screen when Murray was coming off of it and already made a couple of shots. And then LeBron had a really rough fourth quarter, couldn't really hit. He's been good in fourth quarters this season. Yeah. But Jackson Hayes, I want to say, he's really come along the last couple of games, and it started right around here against Denver. He was really effective in this game. And Austin Reeves continues to play make right after I called him out. 10 assists in this game against the Nuggets. So I thought this actually wasn't that bad of a game for the Lakers. AD, 32 points, 9 rebounds, 3 steals, and 4 blocks. So he played well. And I think you guys missed D'Lo a bit. Even though D'Lo didn't play well against the Nuggets last year in the playoffs, he's playing well right now. And it's the regular season. It's one game. So I think you missed him, but not a bad performance, a valiant effort. And it is what it is.
Yeah, like you said, especially with that context, I don't like to make excuses, but I'm not making excuses. I'm just contextualizing. Look, they had a trade deadline, a statue, and then first game back from a 6-game Grammy road trip. You got to play Denver. I did not expect them to win that game. I just was like, it's just too much. It's too much to overcome. It was like 3 too many things. But hey, Denver. There have been better scenarios, and Denver still wins. So you tipped your hat to Denver. I hope when the Lakers play the Denver Nuggets again, they can finally get that W because it's been 6 games now straight. So they got to get one. A W the Lakers did get was against the Pelicans. This one they dominated. 139-122. Took care of business. This was the very next day. Again, no breaks for the Lakers with this schedule. Again, the Pelicans might not be, greatest team on earth, but they're a good team. We just talked about, them beating the Clippers and them being, so solid, so far this year, especially after that in-season tournament. But this was an incredible game time. We just saw, again, D'Lo just on a heater. He was a flamethrower. He had 30 points. He hit 6 threes, and he hit 4 in the second quarter straight. And that's when, he just went Super Saiyan. He just went Steph Curry. He went God mode, whatever you want to, adjectives you want to use to describe his play. It was just absolutely amazing. He was sensational and really the driving force there that kind of spearheaded that lead in the second quarter onto the rest of the game. D'Lo's just been so good. He's been the best version of himself. He was hitting threes and pointing at defenders, and he was getting active. I remember during after 1-3, the Pelicans called timeout. He got to the corner near the bench and he started rallying up the crowd, and they were going crazy. And Jackson Hayes was there, like you said, just kind of rallying him up more, like keep going. And it was just a great game. 139-122. It was sensational to see the Lakers just kind of still dominate, and now all the drama of the trade deadline's over. The statue, it's all done. Let's get back to basketball. And when they got back to basketball, again, people, I know you're not one of those people, Dime, because, you know ball and you can understand even if you have a rooting interest one way, like what's happening. I'm like, don't let that Lakers, record fool you. This team is dangerous. They can easily upset a top 1-2 seed in the playoffs, depending on who that 1-2 seed is going to be. Their resume, when they show you their best version, they got wins against the Celtics, wins against the Pelicans, wins against the Thunder, wins against the Clippers. Like, they've done it, and they've done it when those teams were healthy, and they were healthy. The Knicks had 9 straight wins. They went in there without LeBron or AD, and they beat them convincingly. And again, the Knicks also had players injured, but still, no LeBron, no AD on the road, and you win after beating the Celtics. Like that this team has a lot going good with them. We'll get into it a little bit more because Rui, I think, is a big part of that. And again, 139-122 took care of business. So what were your takeaways from the Lakers-Pels matchup?
This was a shootout, and one of the first games, NBA games I can remember, where every starter had 20-plus points. I mean, this starting lineup of D'Lo, Reeves, LeBron, AD, and now Rui instead of Taurean Prince, it's looking pretty good so far. Haven't lost, right, with that starting lineup?
No, they're 5-0, starting with that lineup, 5-0.
I think Anthony Davis did a good job passing out of double teams in this game, which he's been doing better lately. And Rui Hachimura, 21 points on 9 for 13 shooting. But as you said, D'Angelo Russell. And I think you see this team, this Laker team, they've been really hot offensively recently. Maybe this team, when you account for the fact that their third and fourth best players are Reeves and D'Lo, is more offensive minded than we thought prior to the season. Everybody was talking about the size, the defensive personnel, just given the way we saw Anthony Davis dominate last year in the playoffs defensively. And then, you had guys like Vando, Dennis Schroeder had a really good playoffs defensively, but the Lakers haven't been that great at the point of attack. And right now, all their perimeter point of attack defenders, Max Christie, Gabe Vincent, Vando, Reddish, are all out. So the third and fourth best players in this team are offense first, not really defensive guys in D'Lo and Reeves. And when you start all four of AD, LeBron, D'Lo, and Reeves, you start to see that the advantages are more on the offensive side, and so be it. And you're starting to see a pace increase by the Lakers as well, looking to push, get Reeves in transition, and also D'Lo for those transition threes. He was the stud, the star in this game. Reeves was 4 of 5 from three. The Lakers were 45% from three, but D'Lo, 30 points, 6 for 13 from three. Just a lights out shooting performance by the Lakers. 51 points in the second quarter. So yeah, good win.
So yeah, we'll just move on from there. But yeah, I agree with your points there on the Lakers offense. It's interesting because I think I was struggling with this because I had another friend DM me. They're like, I think this is the best half court offense the Lakers have had in the LeBron era. And I'm like, that's a bold take. But then I thought about it. I'm like, the numbers might kind of back that up a little bit. And looking right now, the team is, for the season, which again, we're talking about now, a smaller sample size where they've kind of shined here, 15th in offense and 9th in half-court defense. I think one thing about their defense right now, yeah, the numbers don't really reflect an elite defense, but they're sneaky good. They're good at deflections. They're good at steals. And you know what that means? Deflections and steals. Deflections lead to higher chance of low quality shots for the team because you deflect the ball. They got to inbound it. How much time's left in the shot clock? And then steals is very simple. That leads to turnovers, which leads to fast break, which leads to more efficient offense and like an ability to score more. So those are a couple things. I know the Lakers were leading the league in deflections, and I think leading the league in steals, or top 3 in steals earlier. I'm not sure where they are now, but I'm guessing they're still probably 12th or something like that, maybe top 10. And they're 15th in half-court offense. And again, those numbers are the whole season in its totality, not this current window where they kind of seem to have figured it out and unlocked a better version of themselves. So it's definitely something I'm going to be keeping an eye on as we, move past the All-Star break, how they look. But so far, they've been rolling. And this was kind of the first game after all that stuff where they started to show, oh, okay, well, this team has these players playing pretty good. All right, so Clippers Pistons was next. We're going to go back to the Clippers, and man, nothing like playing the Pistons to kind of right some wrongs. But I was surprised this game didn't go the way I thought it would. Ultimately, it did. The Clippers won 112-106, but a 6-point win, and they needed like a monster second half to get it done. So I started thinking it wasn't going to happen, but then lo and behold, the Clippers did get it done. So Dime, why were the Clippers down by so much in this game, and how were they able to ultimately still get the win?
The athleticism and speed of the Pistons kind of bothered us, and it was one of those early games where the Clippers are kind of just half-assing it, playing down to the level of their competition. But James Harden and Paul George, I thought, helped us James Harden was terrible in the first half, but second half he kind of woke up, and then Paul George and Russ were really the guys. Kawhi was fine, 24 points, but Russ, 13 points off the bench, 5 for 10 shooting, and then Paul, really good to see him have a good game because he's been struggling of late. 33 points for him, very aggressive, 14 for 24 from the field. So we'll take that win, and also solid contribution from the Brewmaster, Amir Coffey, with 12 points. So
the what?
Just good enough to get the job done. The Brewmaster. That's Brian Seaman. They calls him that.
Oh, okay. The Brewmaster. There you go. That's a good one. I've heard so many things with coffee. It's a great name for puns and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's cool. The Brewmaster. I like that one. All right. So after that, we have more Clippers action. We had Clippers T-Wolves. This before was our kind of premier game. The rain was falling. Sky was falling. Everyone I know talked about this game. It was one of those games where I kept hearing about Clippers T-Wolves. Like, I'm going to watch Clippers T-Wolves. Oh, Clippers T-Wolves is today. Even people who are outside of the Lakers, outside of Lakers and Clippers, just NBA guys that I know were telling me like, "Oh, I'm watching this one. What do you think about this one?" So it was one of the few times I'm like, "Oh, people like this is getting national attention again." The Clippers are at that level now, and the T Wolves have been at that level. So it was kind of like one of those, let's see, kind of an appetizer for, hey, is this like Western Conference Final, teaser here? What's going on? How are these teams going? And I feel like more people have questions about the Timberwolves than the Clippers at this point. But hey, that definitely changed after this game because people were talking the other way around because the Timberwolves dominated 121-100. You got a great game from Gobert. You got a great game all around. Edwards, I think, was just kind of his normal good. But when you have, Towns dropping 24 and Gobert, being a positive on offense and a monster on defense, and then Ant just doing what he normally does, well, now you got something that's interesting here. So this game was a big one. It didn't go the way the Clippers wanted. I know you mentioned, I saw on your live mentioning how disappointing kind of Russ was. It's one of the things. So I always tell people when these kind of games come up, hey, remember, it's just one. If it was game one, we wouldn't say the series is over. We'd say, okay, Clippers got to win game two. They win game two. Okay, we keep going, right? So, but this is all we have right now. It is the game we had. The teams knew. I think you kind of felt it. Both teams kind of knew, hey, like, let's kind of size up each other here. What's up? And the Timberwolves came out on top. What was your biggest takeaway from this matchup?
Second time we've played them this season. Second time we've lost. Their size bothers us. I mean, one of the big issues for our team was that we got smaller in the front court, thinner in the front court when we traded Rocco and Batum. And Karl-Anthony Towns is playing the four, and this is really working. And I got to give the Wolves credit. I don't think they're going to win the championship this year, but they can go to the conference finals to me now. They're not a fraudulent one seed. They're a fraudulent one seed in the sense that I don't think they can win the championship. And most times you get the one seed, you should be taken seriously to win the championship. But I think they should be taken seriously to win a series or two because their defense is exceptional and by far, and I'm saying it, by far the best in the league right now. No, just by far the best in the league. Yeah, they have great point of attack guys. Mike Conley somehow is still good at defense. I don't know how. Guarded James Harden really well. McDaniels is one of the best in the league. I'd say he and OG Anunoby are my favorite perimeter defenders right now in the league. Not favorite, but who I think are the best. And then Gobert is the best rim protector in basketball. I think Anthony Davis is the best defender in the league, but Gobert is going to win Defensive Player of the Year because his team's #1 in defensive rating. And he was dominant and he was crashing the offensive glass, and Karl-Anthony Towns was not settling, and they were locking our guys up. And the Clippers play slow, right? We're a half-court team now that we have Harden. The Timberwolves, that only helps their half-court defense with Gobert. So it's just a bad matchup. We're smaller than them and slower than them. And playing slow doesn't really hurt them that much. The Ant-Man, we have a problem with staying in front of him. And yeah, Russell Westbrook, he has a tough time with this team because they're just going to sag off with their big, and they have either 2 7-footers in with Towns and Reed or Gobert in. And Russ misses a lot of those contested layups. So tough game. I don't think Kawhi Leonard was actually, Kawhi was pretty good, but he didn't play any of the fourth quarter. I think Ty let them try to see if they could come back, Harden, Paul, and Russ, in the beginning of the fourth. It didn't happen. And I also think Ty kind of got this one wrong. Way too much small ball. And it didn't really pay off because Russ, with that small ball, they just sagged off of him. And Gobert, with good point of attack defenders, makes a really good defense.
Yeah, no, that's great insight there on that game.
So I don't want to play them in the playoffs, Edwin.
Ooh, that's tough.
You might have to play them in the second round, but I think it's kind of looking like it's going to be impossible to play them in the first round, but I would not want to play them in the first round. Inversely, though, I think the Lakers have a decent matchup with the Wolves because Anthony Davis can nullify Gobert. But you guys also don't have anyone for Ant-Man either. Nobody could stay in front of him when you guys played them.
No, he's good. He's definitely gonna have a. I don't know how the series will go. I think I would pick the Lakers in 6. I don't think you want to go 7 games because the 7th would be in their house. But I think the Lakers can get it in 6, and I can guarantee you, Ant will have at least one 40-point game. He might have 2 or 3 because he's that good. He's that good. Period. I think if he played Boston, he'd have a 40-point game because Ant really. He's at that level. The reason I don't think most people view him that way is because he hasn't done it in the playoffs where people can watch it, and he hasn't.
He averaged 30 last year in the playoffs.
Yeah. But I feel like they went where people thought they would. So it's like, oh, okay, so what, right? I
Right.
think he hasn't had that moment where he played like I'll just make up a scenario like he plays the Celtics and everyone says the Celtics are better and he's so good that they beat him anyway. Like that kind of moment hasn't happened for him yet. I think it's coming, and this might be the year, right? They get the 1 seed. Hey, you know how you get attention? Run through the West and be the guy, just like Jimmy Butler's did in the East, right? Where anyone who thought Jimmy wasn't that guy, he's shown you 2 times that he is. He hasn't gotten the ultimate goal, but hey, he came out of the East kind of not single-handedly, but as the main guy. He's done it twice. He's that guy, right? He has those moments, playing a Bucks team that's a lead and saying, "Hey, I'm taking it to Giannis," and we got the upset. We were the 8 seed, won. We played the next team, still an 8 seed, won. Like, I've shown that I can do that, right? Like Ant hasn't had those moments yet. He might get those moments coming up in this playoff, especially as we look at the standings later. There's some elite heavy hitters that are going to be at that 7-8 spot, so he's going to at least have that moment in that early round, and then we'll see how things match up. Does he end up in the Clippers matchup? Does he end up playing someone like Kevin Durant and the Suns in the second round? It's going to be really fun once we get to that point. But moving on, let's go to Lakers Pistons again. I just love playing Detroit. I'm still bitter about 04. Someone actually mentioned it even in my messages, and I was like, "Oh, we're gonna run this team out the gym." They're like, "Yeah, 04." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. It still stings, but it didn't sting on this game." Lakers Pistons, they took care of business. I was definitely nervous because we've talked so much about how the Lakers have overperformed against the best teams, but they've also underperformed against the worst teams. So I was like, in my head when I was walking to crypto, I'm like, please. Just win the game. Like don't get cute. Take care of business. Win the game and let's end it. Luckily, they did just that. They led pretty much the whole way. I think they only trailed literally the first field goal. It was 2-1 Pistons, and after that, that's it. It was tied. They took the lead. They kind of ran Detroit out the gym, which is what you're supposed to do. This team's not a good team. They're a young team. They made more trades than anyone in the NBA at the trade deadline. So they moved a lot of parts. They're growing. They're figuring it out. You should beat this team. You need wins to try to rise up the rankings in the play-in. They're just trying to kind of figure out who here is an NBA player that is worth investing in for a contract beyond the rookie one. That's where the Pistons are at, right? So the Lakers have LeBron and AD. Take care of business. They did. 125, 111. You had another great game with those starting lineups. 20 points from AD, 25 from LeBron, 21 from AD, from Russell, 15 from Reeves, which wasn't like spectacular, but he was distributing the ball well as well and grabbing rebounds. So you got a really, really good game. So I was pretty happy with this. And of course, this was also Dinwiddie's debut. We haven't talked about Dinwiddie today. Pelinka mentioned during the conference he had that he was focused on a ball handler in the buyout market, and that was the number one concern he wanted to address. And he addressed it with Dinwiddie. Now, I've seen so many things about Dinwiddie. Some people are like, oh, the Lakers are making this sound like, they got Kyrie or something. It's like, no. We all know what he is. He's a double-digit scorer who's going to add depth to that position that they're lacking, and he's going to do that. Fans are excited about that. No one thinks he's going to come in and be like the third best guy or anything like that. He's just filling a need that the team lacked, and that's good. 31 minutes was a lot. He's obviously still not comfortable with the play calls and kind of just the terminology more than anything. He's an NBA player. He understands 5-out offense and all that. It's just understanding the words they use for this means that, this means that. That's still something he's trying to play catch up on. So I'm sure he'll get more comfortable as time progresses. But I thought he looked pretty good. He played okay. He got thunderous applause in the stadium when they announced him, so he was welcomed with open arms. Local guy, so that's always good. And hopefully all he needs to do just hit a couple shots, run the offense sometimes, drive to the basket. Try on defense. No one expects him to be a world beater, but just make that effort. That's it. And then we'll see what his minutes are going to look like. But that was my takeaways from Lakers Pistons. They took care of business. What are yours?
Lakers pushing the pace. It looks like you guys are really leaning into being faster with your offense of late. AD's outlet passing. Where did this come from? All of a sudden, he's throwing passes down the floor like he's Kareem.
Yeah, he threw an overhead one that was really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and Austin Reeves literally seems like he miit be listening to this show because the second I said I think he's getting tunnel vision, I'm sick of him. He's ball pounding. He's been much better in the pick and roll. Maybe part of that is D'Lo being a great 3-point shooter, playing alongside him more. But I think he also just has been looking up and being more deliberate with his dribbling. That's just been my observation. No stat behind it. And in this game, you saw him on the fast break with a couple of Showtime kind of passes.
Yeah, some nice ones. Yeah.
Right. And then Anthony Davis defensively, stopping 3-on-1 fast breaks, just dominating the rim defensively. 6 blocks in 28 minutes. He had 20 points and 14 boards, 4 assists, a lot of hockey assists. And I thought LeBron was really solid as well. 25
Yeah.
points on 9 for 15 shooting, kept it efficient. So solid contributions. And as you said, taking care of business, 15 plus points from each starter. And then Jackson Hayes with 7 rebounds. He's also just been very active on the glass recently. So good overall game for the Lakers and another 120 plus point game and a win.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that 3-on-1 fast break that AD destroyed was amazing. It was actually funny. There was a big Detroit presence inside crypto, but there was a few that were peppered in, right? And there was one guy who was like, it was so funny. He was like sitting pretty close to me. He was screaming the whole game. Like whenever they dunked and stuff, you would think like, even though they were down 18, I'm like, man, this guy's like diehard because he's like cheering like they just turned the tide. I'm like, buddy, like it's over. And it was really funny when that 3-on-1 happened. He's like, yeah, here we go, here we go. And he said he literally yelled out easy money. And then he saw him go up and get demolished. And he literally was like, easy money. And then the block happened. He was like, oh, I couldn't help but chuckle a little, even though I'm supposed to kind of stay straight. I'm like, oh yeah, he's like, yeah, that's it, that's AD. He's like, wow, I thought it was gonna be 3-on-1. Okay, cool, let's go. And it's like, no, AD's like, you should have passed, and that's the end of that. So yeah, AD was dominant as ever. It was a great win. And Ham mentioned this a little bit, I think, post game after Utah, that it's really one of the keys has been the team just trusting the 5-out, that when you pass the ball, it can still make its way back to you. And I'm sure you deal with this with kids, right? Like you get the ball and human nature is like, this is my last chance to like kind of, I got the ball. Like this is my chance to score. And it's like, it could be, but if not, move it around. It can come back to you. Like it can come back to you. It doesn't mean you gave up the shot. If there's no shot, it might come back to you just based on rotation and moving it, and that's what gets it flowing. And that's one thing Ham stressed, was that he thinks that players are kind of buying into the system and saying, hey, when you get the ball, it's not your only chance to shoot, which is what it felt like with Reeves, right? Grab the ball, pound, 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 pound. I'm trying to score. It's like, hey, you don't got it? Move it around. It's gonna make its way around. It's gonna get the offense flowing. It's gonna get the defense on its heels. Versus when they know you're gonna get the ball, oh, Reeves is not gonna pass the ball. Let me dig my heels in, and we can crash on them. So I think that's been a big factor as well. Now, the next game we're going to talk about, I really want to talk about Clippers, Warriors. This was such a fun one. It was such a great game. It was, again, we're getting to the point now, Dime, where like when the Clippers play these marquee games, everyone's watching. I don't know how do you feel about that? Being a kind of the underdog team, how do you feel about the whole world kind of paying attention to these Clipper games?
Started when we got James Harden. I think that put the eyeballs from what was going to be a kind of flow under the radar season to everyone's watching now. And James Harden was unbelievable in this game, taking advantage of the fact that Draymond was at the 5, not really a rim protector. He was getting to the rim, made a ton of great passes. And you saw some good stuff from Amir Coffey. But we were trailing most of this game. We completely trailing most of this game. Kuminga was flying all over the place. Pajimski was giving us the business. Curry was giving us the business. Then in the fourth quarter, 44-28, Clippers outscored them. Norman Powell hit 4 of 4 threes in the fourth, and James Harden created a lot of those shots. Paul George was being super aggressive one-on-one in the beginning of that fourth, posting up Gary Payton. And I always say Paul George is so much better when he's catching the ball closer to the basket, not overcomplicating his game. He drew a defensive 3-second violation, a double team, and then Russ and Terrence Mann with the second efforts, bunch of offensive rebounds. Terrence with the one that sealed the game, but Russ with 4 offensive rebounds in the game, 3 in the fourth. And Zubats and Plumlee, I thought, were really solid as well. So without Kawhi, who was out with the adductor strain, they say that they think he's going to be back by the end of the All-Star break. What a big-time win. Totally stole the game. Huge win to go into the All-Star break with that.
I definitely thought you guys were dead in the water. Once the fourth quarter started, I'm like, it's just too much. And like, again, no Kawhi. I'm like, I don't see it happening. But again, you get some shots going, a couple threes get going. You're making key rebounds. Next thing you know, again, people keep thinking the Warriors are going to be different, but this is who they are. Like when we start looking at people have to get away from the KD Warriors, even the Celtics championship Warriors. That was a team that was focused on winning one without KD. Jordan Poole had playing the best basketball of his life. Andrew Wiggins playing the best, but that's not this team anymore. Poole's not there. Wiggins has not played like that most of the time. Curry's a little bit older, although he's still sensational. Clay has definitely taken a dip. And, they've gotten older. Like, they're not that anymore, And they're still good. They're still a threat. They're still dangerous, just like they were on Wednesday night, right? They were right there. They had it. But that's the difference. That game happens 3 years ago. It stays a blowout loss, right? And Clippers lose by 15. Now, they bleed a little. And if you can get them off their rocker, they struggle. And that's what happened. They got rocked a little bit, and they couldn't respond. And next thing you know, momentum went the other way. And again, shout outs to the Clippers for taking it to them, because that's still a tough team to beat. When they're at their best too, because they got Curry. They can beat anybody. It doesn't really shock you when you know exactly what happened if the Warriors won. It meant Steph went nuclear, Clay played decent, and you got like okay stats from the core. That's what happened. Like I can already tell you what happens when the Warriors overperform. That's usually the recipe, and they were well on their way to that. And then the Clippers took it to them. So props to the Clippers for doing that. It's tough to still do that against that team. And those are those to me, those resilient, like feel good wins where you're like, yeah, like see, if we just stay focused, we're not out of any game. There's not a game that the Clippers are out of. And I definitely do believe that. They're a team that can score 40, 50 in a quarter. So for the most part, you really have to keep playing until maybe 3 minutes left. And then if you're up by 20, you can clear the bench out. But other than that, you got to stay on your P's and Q's, because they have some really, really strong offensive weapons that can when they get going, it's just very dangerous. And Harden too. He can get those matchups. He can get those foul calls. It can turn ugly fast. And yeah, I remember I might just for fun during this break, because we're going to have the All-Star break coming up, I might actually go listen to our old episodes. I remember that was one of the things you were happy about going into the season. You're like, oh, we're going to go under the radar. Good for us. No one's going to be paying attention. Man, that's the furthest from where they're at. Now everyone's paying attention to the Clippers. People are starting to pick them as favorites. They're a top team in the West. And these matchups against the Warriors, against the Timberwolves, against the Lakers, against the Celtics, they're going to be, they're going to get millions of views, and everyone's going to be talking about whatever's happening, good or bad. So yeah, they're not under the radar. That's the one thing they definitely are not this year. All right. So to conclude our matchups here, we had Lakers heading to Utah, one road game, and they're done. LeBron ruled himself out at after the Pistons game. He's like, yeah, I'm not gonna play that game. So we were like, okay, cool. Well, that's confirmed. So we don't have to wait for an injury report. You're literally telling us you're not gonna play. Which makes sense. It's again back-to-back on the road right before the All-Star break. I wasn't surprised. I was a little surprised, because we were talking about it, and with the media people I was talking to, we were like 60-40 he'll probably play, because he's toughed it out for most of the year. But of course, once he announced it, that was it. And I was just skeptical they were going to get the win, to be honest, just because I felt like, are they going to really get pull this off without LeBron? Even though the Jazz are kind of heading the wrong way, they're losing more than they're winning. They still got some really good players, and they're at home. They play pretty well at home. We've mentioned how much it can be kind of a hostile environment regardless of the record there. So I thought, it's not going to be enough to kind of get it done. But you know what? It was 138, 122. Why? Because Rui Hachimura became Kobe Bean Bryant.
Wow.
He probably shot more efficiently, to be honest, but that's another story. That's right. I mean, he was unbelievable. He had his best game in the regular season, because to me, his best games were in the playoffs last year. He had one game, he was like 7 for 11 from 3 in the playoffs. So that's big boy basketball. But for the regular season, definitely his best game. 36 points, his career high. He knocked out 6 threes, 13 for 19 from the field. He had 20 points in the first half alone. They really need those 22. To me, that first half was key because it was a 1-point game at halftime, and he dropped 20. So they needed all those points to kind of stay there as the Jazz kind of were still in the mix and they were making runs in the first half, especially. Rui kind of kept him in. He was, especially the way he was scoring, he was being aggressive. He was picking his spots. He was hitting those corner threes. He was kind of doing everything, playing perfect basketball. And another player who was right there with him was AD. He mentioned last time that LeBron was out, they lost, and he was frustrated with himself, feeling like he wasn't aggressive enough. He took 25 shots, 13 for 25, 37 points, 15 boards. He's always a monster on the board, so that doesn't really stand out. But again, it's him doing it in all phases, and that's exactly what he did. And D'Lo didn't have a great offensive game in terms of scoring points, but my goodness, 17 assists. That was like half of the team's assists came just from D'Lo. So he was distributing the ball well since he wasn't taking that high volume shots, and that makes sense. Rui's hot, feed him the ball. AD's getting aggressive, keep him aggressive. So he was 4 for 8. He didn't really wow. And again, like you mentioned, Reeves, 22 points, 9 for 13, 3 threes, 7 assists. So he's distributing the ball as well. He was second right behind D'Lo with that team high 17. And the team was buzzing. And what did I say about Dinwiddie? Just be a double-digit scorer and try on defense. That's what he did. 10 points, 4 for 6. 28 minutes. The minutes are a little high, but also you got to remember that LeBron wasn't there, so he takes a portion of the minutes. And with players like Max Christie and Cam Reddish out right now, you don't really have too many guards. So, it's a little high for me. I'd rather he be closer to low 20s, but with the context, that makes sense. And again, he was a net positive. So, really good win. It was really great to get the win. And don't look now. The Lakers have won 3 in a row. They haven't really gained much ground because everyone in the West is pretty much winning unless you have a West versus West game. It's been pretty wild. Obviously we have our West Coast bias, but honestly, it's just a better conference in the East. It doesn't mean that the Celtics can't win it all because they might be the best team, as much as I hate to admit that. But when you look at the conference, I mean, the records are going to show what the records are going to show. And I promise you, the 10th seed in the West will have a better record than the 10th seed in the East. It is a different animal. Like, these teams are so stacked. They're so good. It's really going to be a tough conference this year, even more than normal. I think it's probably the second best I've ever remember it being. I think the only other year I can think of, Dime, is the year that the Suns had like 50 wins and they were like the 6th seed with Shaq. That was probably the best I've seen the West in terms of record and just depth. This is right up there to me. But what were your takeaways from Lakers Jazz?
I didn't get to watch this one. This was the one Laker game I missed this week, but I will say, just looking at the box score and elaborating off of what you were saying, the Lakers have won 6 out of their last 7 games. And in the last 4 wins, they've scored 120 plus points. The offense is starting to hum. He's starting to get big assist numbers. D'Lo has been playing insane since the trade rumor started. Like, let's be real. He has been unbelievable. Yeah. Austin Reeves has been good. The starting lineup is putting Reeves and D'Lo back together is working. AD's been a monster, 25 and 12 at this stage of the season, another big game. And I'm happy to hear that from Rui Hachimura. So right now, Lakers going into the All-Star break with some momentum, and that was kind of a sign of the Jazz that, like, you're not going to catch us, guys. Like, just tank. You're done. And then they lost the Warriors too, and I think they kind of sent a message as well.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's what's going to happen with the Jazz. I know ownership wants them to tank. The players, they don't care about that stuff because, I think it's funny. Sometimes fans are like, oh, the team wants to lose. I mean, the teams want to lose. They have jobs. Like, they're not excited about a top draft pick coming in and taking a roster spot. So they're trying to win, but management might have a different idea. And, performances like that make it rough. All right, let's jump right into the standings watch. We've gone a little bit deep because we had all the games. We covered all the games. So let's go right into the standings. As you've mentioned, we'll start at the East with number 11, Brooklyn. So they're just outside of that 10th spot for the play-in. Right now they'd be eliminated, but they're at 11. 10, we have the Hawks. This is the current as of the end of tonight. So we have the Hawks at 10, 9 Bulls, 8 Magic, 7 Heat. And then outside of the play-in, secured playoff spots, we have number 6, the Pacers, 5 Sixers, 4 Knicks, 3 Bucks, 2 the Cavs, and number 1 still the Boston Celtics. So, Dime, seeing 1 through 11 there, hearing that lineup, what sticks out to you?
What sticks out to me is 9 of my 10 teams that I predicted to make the play in before the season are in. The only one is Brooklyn is out. Chicago is in. So the non-Zach LaVine Chicago Bulls stuff has been very surprising to me. Kobe White will win the most improved player this year. He is
Wow.
really impressed. I think, yeah, he's gonna. He's a clear candidate for me. Chicago shouldn't be doing this without Zach. And Boston, they are very clearly going to get the number 1 seed unless something completely unforeseen happens. But the standout for me there, because Indiana is only half a game above Miami. I still think Miami might finish 6th, but remember, Indiana did get Pascal Siakam, so they're a better team now than they were before the season started. The main takeaway for me, the Cleveland Cavaliers have leapfrogged the Milwaukee Bucks. Glenn Rivers is hired, and they're 3-7, slipping slowly. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know what Adrian Griffin did to those players. And the Cleveland Cavaliers are getting no love from the national media, and it's very disappointing. 2nd seed, Evan Mobley and Darius Garland were out, and Donovan Mitchell has put this team on his back and has played so well. And it can't, oh my God, and can't just be, it can't just be one person as well when you're winning like this. Jared Allen has been good. You know, guys like Max Strus, George Niang, Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro. These guys deserve a lot more credit. They're getting none from the national media. It's despicable. If they get the 2 seed, that would be shocking because everybody predicted Boston, Milwaukee. And it looked like it was going to be that for the longest time.
Yeah, no, I think before the season started, you had, in no particular order, Boston, New York, Philly, Milwaukee. And obviously Philly, the big asterisk as well, Joel Embiid, he goes down. No one has him in the top 4, and they're 5 right now. So that makes sense. But yeah, the Cavs still jumped in that mix, and they're number 2. Playing a little devil's advocate, if it ended today, and let's pretend that the 9 and 10 seed, the Bulls and Hawks don't make it, right? So it's just the top 8 make it. Traditional kind of setup. Cavs, Heat, Dime. Who would you have?
Heat in 7.
And that's my.
But it shouldn't be. Actually, you know what?
I get you.
It shouldn't
you were
be.
honest.
Though.
You were honest. Jimmy Butler is a monster. I get it. They have they have Heat culture. They have Bam. That might be it. But I think that's people's fear with the Cavs. It's kind of the good story, but like, come on, like when we really roll the balls out and play for keeps, like what's going to happen? Well, but again, that's why I asked. I wanted to see what your idea was there.
It's less about Cleveland and more about Miami. Me giving them credit, but now that I think about it, it should be the Cavs beat them in like 6 games max because they have an Isaac Okoro. It's a great defender to guard Jimmy. And what's the Miami Heat's weakness? They're pretty small.
Yeah. Even Bam, like he's not like what you think of as a center and that kind of thing. Yeah.
But we talk about the Clippers are thin at the 4. Miami plays Kevin Love, and then that's it. Like Caleb Martin at the 4, like all these guys, Haywood Highsmith. The Cavs with Mobley and Allen, they're big.
I would go Cavs in that lineup, in that situation, but I would be very nervous. I would be very nervous. Of course, plenty of time for the Heat to move up. If it was the Pacers, I definitely pick the Cavs, to be honest. If it was Pacers 7, I'm like, oh yeah, Cavs take that one. So again, it's going to be a lot of matchup-based stuff. The league has a lot more parity than it did before. I think people are going to have to get away from, a 2 seed would only lose to a 7 seed once every like 10 years. Like we're kind of past that now with how the NBA is.
Don't you think part of it is? Yeah, I agree with you, but don't you think part of it is that the top seeds are less intimidating because they're all like always changing? You have less of these powerhouse teams that have stayed for a couple of years. Like to beat San Antonio, you could it was tough to beat the Kobe Gasol Lakers. You couldn't just show up like Dirk Nowitzki and them. They had trials and tribulations before they beat them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Same with the Thunder. Yeah, they had a rite of passage. They lost to the Lakers. Then they 2 years later they beat them. So. And even a team like the Westbrook KD Thunder, they were not like they had that continuity. I think now you see, for example, the Bucks, they just got Dame. The Knicks, they've had their changes. The Clippers, the Suns, every team constantly is changing. And I think maybe that's part of why Cleveland is doing so well, though they didn't make many changes.
Yeah, sometimes the best thing to do is stay the course, right? I'll be curious at the end of this season. I'm gonna take a look. Probably from 2020 to now, because I think what happens is the records don't matter as much and the teams do. Because when you look at it, what teams have been consistently at the top? the Celtics, the Heat, the the Nuggets, and the Lakers, right? The Lakers missed that one season, but they won it all in 2020. They made the Western Conference 2023. We'll see what happens, in 2024. We've seen the Heat make 2 finals. We've seen the Celtics kind of always there. So I think those teams have been there regardless of their standings. So maybe there's something there with the core teams kind of being at the end when we get to the finals. So I'm gonna do some like data research once we finish this year and see. Okay, maybe let's do second round on. What is there any consistency there? But I do agree there's a lot of parity, and some of that does have to do with the player movement happening, and just I think the league's kind of shifting. It's changing, right? Like we talk a lot about LeBron's old, right? Kawhi's older. Like those young guys aren't ready yet. So you're kind of seeing the league kind of in a funny spot. It kind of reminds me of where the league was in the late 90s, early 2000s, where it was a little bit of the Wild West overall. Like the Knicks made a number, they made it in the lockout year. They made it all the way to the end. It was kind of like Kobe and the Lakers weren't ready, so the Jazz still kind of won those series, and like things were kind of shifting a little bit. And then, of course, San Antonio established themselves, Lakers established themselves, Detroit established themselves, but it took a little bit of time to kind of settle in. And I feel like that's happening now with LeBron being well past 35 and KD being past 35. Like you're starting to see that they're old, but like Ja, Trey, and they're not quite ready yet. So they're winning those regular season games, but those playoff series, we saw that last year with the Kings, right? Kings, Warriors. You saw that, you're not quite ready to beat those established teams when that happens. And that's what makes something like Cavs, Heat interesting, because the Heat can do it. They literally did it last year. And with the Cavs, you're like, ooh, I don't know if you can eliminate Jimmy Butler. That makes me nervous, and it's because we haven't seen it yet. So we're going to see there's either going to be a changing of the guard, or we're going to see those tried and true teams do what they do, which is say, okay, the Cavs, the Warriors, the Heat literally were an AC last year and ran through the division. So they're like, okay, sure, we'll play a road game. Like, good luck. So that'll be fun to see when we get there. All right, so let's take a look real quick at the West, starting with the Jazz, who are briefly out there at the 11th spot and back in the play-in. Speak of the devil. Warriors right there at 10. 9, Lakers. 8, we got the Kings. 7, we got the Mavericks. And out of the play-in, still, we got the Pellies right there at 6. 5, Suns. 4, Nuggets. 3, the Clippers end at the 3. And we have the Thunder 2 and the Timberwolves 1. So, Dime, hearing 1 through 11 there, what stands out to you right now?
Standout is that 5 through 10 is very much interchangeable and in play, it seems like. I think that the Pelicans really impressed me. They've won 3 straight games now. They're 7-3 in their last 10. And they're finally starting to see some good luck with health so far with Zion, Ingram, and McCollum. So I'm happy for them. And then Dallas, they've won 6 in a row. The pickups of Gafford and PJ Washington strengthen their depth. They're in a solid spot, 7 seed. I think they're having a good season. Golden State being back in the mix, as you mentioned. And then Minnesota and OKC. I mean, that's the takeaway. Minnesota being number 1. It's just unbelievable. And then OKC second, of course. So it looks like we'll see if anything changes in the last 30 games. But Clippers, Denver, Wolves, and Thunder seems like they're going to be the teams that get home court this year. We'll see. I hope so, because that would mean the Clippers get home court in the first round for the first time since 2021.
Okay, so here, let's break it down. Right now we have T-Wolves 1, Thunder 2, Clippers 3, Nuggets 4. I'm going to ask you straight up, so give me a straight up answer. Is that going to be the order after we finish the 82 games?
Nope.
What changes?
Clippers will be higher than the Thunder.
I agree. I think the Nuggets are also going to be higher. I think, I'm going to say it, Thunder are going to drop to 4, maybe 5, because the Suns are.
Thunder Suns first round would be must-see television. I'd be rooting.
I think we're getting Thunder
hard
Suns
for OKC, but Phoenix I think will win.
Ooh, I think if OKC has home court, they win. I think if Phoenix has home court, OKC's gonna again. Remember last year, we didn't do the show last year. I wish we did, because the Pelicans were right around here. Then they had some injuries. They were like number 1, and then they dropped. I think no one believed that one though. Everyone kind of felt like, oh, they're gonna fall, and they kind of fell more due to injuries versus like their performance. But either way, they fell, and then they were never the same. I think the T-Wolves are going to stay up there. I think I've seen enough that they're going to stay up there. I think the Thunder, it's very fragile. What is it, like a game behind the Clippers? And it's like a game and a half with the Nuggets. It's really close. I mean, a game and a half between 2 and 4, that's a huge drop-off, right? That means you're going on the road in the second round versus, only going on the road if the 1 seed stays up there, right? So that's a huge difference. So I think that it's tight up there. I think the Clippers are going to stay as good as they are, minus injuries. And I think the Nuggets, they know they just need to turn it up just a little bit to get to 2 or 3 seed. I think they'll do enough to make sure they're up there. They're a shoo-in for easily 55, 56 wins. So I think the Thunder are just going to fall enough to either get 4 or 5. I think they won't fall as far as 6, but I think they'll be 4 and 5 when it's over. And when it comes to the play-in, I'm really interested. I think the Pelicans end up in the play-in. I think the Mavericks move up. And the Lakers have already talked privately about what their goals are. Darvin Ham made this public so I can talk about it. He talked about it during his press conference, his last one in Los Angeles, that they've mapped out the games left and they've projected 3 different goals for what's like realistic. Because he mentioned, obviously, win all your games. Okay, we're not going to win 30 straight, right? I think everyone knows the Lakers aren't going to win 30 straight. So what's realistic, what's possible? They said they looked at the schedule. They've made 3 different markers for like where they need to get to, at least from what they projected, to get to the 6 seed, to get to the 7 seed, to get to the 8 seed, to kind of try to avoid. One of the things he mentioned is the goal is to get better and to avoid having a 1-game elimination. Because if you're the 9-10, you just need to win. You just need to lose 1 game. You lose that 9-10 game, you're out. And even if you win that one more, you're out. Versus 7 and 8, the advantage of being 7 and 8 is you need to lose twice. You need to lose that 7 and 8 game, and then you need to lose the other game that you'll host. So you really want to make sure you're at least in that 7-8. So you have to lose 2 times to be eliminated versus 9 and 10. It's very fragile. So they're right there. They're only 1 win away from the Kings in the win column. It's a little bit more when you actually look at it, but they're 31 wins for the Kings, 30 for the Lakers. So they're not too far away from that. And I think they can still get the 6 seed, but I'm going to assume it's just a little too much. So I think the goal's got to be 7. Get the 7 seed. And then from there, hey, we're going to host a game in LA. Whoever that team is, take care of business. Here's the 7 seed. Man, the 2 seed, it might be the Clippers. Lakers-Clippers first round, 2-7. We're not that far away. We just need both teams we need the Clippers to move up to 2. And if the Lakers move up to 8 and they win, there you go. 2-7. That's all it takes. So it could be basketball on Figueroa from crypto at the 2-7 seed. I might have to make that happen. That would be pretty nice. That'd be interesting.
It's not in the cards.
We'll see. So yeah, of course, long way to go. The Clippers have to go up. The Lakers have to go up. Plenty can happen here. But I'm really excited. All-Star break. Many people think of it as a halftime, but we are well past that. We're almost down to the final quarter. We just have a handful of games. So before we wrap it up, tell me what the most exciting thing you're looking forward to in the All-Star weekend festivities. Are you looking forward to the game the most, the 3-point contest, the dunk contest, or the Sabrina Steph 3-point contest is happening on Saturday?
I think All-Star Weekend has gone in a huge decline. It used to be my favorite thing, and now I don't even get excited for it. I barely watch it. It was literally the greatest thing ever. I think my most excited event, or event that I'm most excited for, is Sabrina and Steph.
Yeah, me too. Same thing. We talked about it before, but we lost that recording. Yeah, it used to be like you can see all the stars. Also, back in the day when you didn't have League Pass and you weren't as engaged, it also was a time for you to see all the stars. You probably only saw your local team and then whatever ESPN, ABC, NBC showed. So it definitely was a little bit more important because you're like, oh, okay, now it's everyone. And again, I think they were more competitive. The games were more fun. Again, that's a mixture of how the leagues changed and nostalgia and all that stuff, right? So, but yeah, I agree. I'm not as excited about it this year than I have been, maybe 10 years ago. But I am excited for Steph. Sabrina, I think that's going to be really interesting. I think it's great that Steph's like embracing, like, hey, you have the record for most points in a 3-point contest. Like, let's go at it. Like, let's do that. It's way better than seeing Steph try to win it again. We know he's the best shooter in the NBA. He's kind of in a lose-lose. If he wins it, people are like, yeah, well, that's Steph. And if he loses it, it's like, oh, you should have won. So it's like, okay, this is something to give them a different challenge and come at it from a different perspective. And then also keep the 3-point contest as is. So I think it's just adding to the intrigue of the night. So before I give my answer, I'm going to put you on the spot. Dime, who wins? Steph or Sabrina?
I'm going to go with Sabrina.
Okay. I'm going to go with Sabrina too, but my concern for Sabrina is I'm sure she's working hard right now because she's in the off season. But she's in her off season. How rusty is she going to feel like putting on the actual jersey and going on in front of a crowd? Like she hasn't done that since the WNBA finals. Versus Steph, he's like in tip-top shape. He's literally dragging the Warriors in these games. So he's like, imagine if Steph had to do this in summer league. He's a shooter, so he'll be fine. But you're probably not as sharp as he is right now. So that's my only thing for Sabrina. I'm very curious if she shoots from the WNBA line or the NBA line. The rules have been very clear. Sabrina's going to shoot from the WNBA. Steph's going to shoot from the NBA. Steph's going to use an NBA ball. Sabrina's going to use a WNBA ball. So they've established that. But Sabrina's talked on Twitter and stuff that, no, I'm going to shoot from the NBA line, which I think is totally fine if you watched literally just Google her highlights. She shoots from way past the WNBA line. So I don't think that's an issue. I'm just curious if she kind of backpedals in there and decides, you know what, let me actually shoot from that. Or if she says, you know what, go big or go home. I'm going from deep. And again, I'm not really worried about Sabrina with that aspect because I've seen her shoot from the logo, like a regular jump shot and make it plenty of time. So she'll be fine. It'll be fun. It'll be exciting. I just hope she's kind of in basketball shape despite the fact this is her off season. So I'll be curious to see that. And yeah, for me, that's the biggest thing. I'll still watch a little bit of everything else just for the culture, but I'm less excited about it. I can't wait for it to come next year to California. It's going to be in the Bay. And after that, I don't know if you know, Dime, but the Clippers have a new stadium and they're going to have All-Star. And All-Star is coming to LA. So that one's definitely going to be fun. I think I'll be in the Intuit Dome before then, but I'll definitely be there for that. No doubt about it. It's going to be really interesting watching the Clippers host an All-Star game. I'm sure if I told you that like 10 years ago, you would have been like, I don't know when that's going to happen.
Even mean.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But no, your house, you're the team. It's going to be a Clippers moment in a couple years. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be wild. Having everyone come here, the NBA world, the basketball world come here and go to the Clippers stadium and celebrate that. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have some time before then, but an amazing event for the Clippers and just shows how far they've come to host something like that. Ballmer.
Yeah, Ballmer. Hey, I have my qualms with the Clippers, but Ballmer, I have no qualms. He's a great owner. Seems like a great guy. He spends his money. I mean, that's what you want your owner to be. You don't want your owner complaining about the luxury tax and this and that and making excuses. And Ballmer, he can be memeable, but he definitely, his heart's in the right place. He wants the team to win. He wants to win, and he wants to do whatever he needs to do to get it done. And if his biggest fault is he gets too excited, I'll take that. I'll take that versus a cheap owner who's just trying to turn a profit because they see the NBA as a money machine. Like, you want an owner like Ballmer, everyone does. So, that's going to be a scene. I can't wait for that. All right, so that's the end of episode 17.2 of Basketball Figueroa. I'm Edwin Garcia. That was/is Dar E.N. Basiri, a.k.a. Time Trapper. Enjoy All-Star Weekend, and we out.